Hi.
Hello.
We're in the Proclaimer's book on page 186 at the subheading, When Individuals Choose to Ignore Bible Standards. Millions of persons have studied the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, but not all of them have become witnesses. When some persons learn the high standards that apply, they decide that this is not the sort of life that they want. All who do get baptized are first given thorough instruction in basic Bible teachings, and thereafter, especially since 1967, elders in the congregation review such teachings with each baptismal candidate. Every effort is made to be sure that those being baptized clearly understand not only doctrine, but also what Christian conduct involves. However, what if some of those later allow love of the world to entice them into serious wrongdoing?
As early as 1904, in the book The New Creation, attention was given to the need to take appropriate action so as not to allow a demoralizing of the congregation. The understanding that the Bible students then had of the procedure for dealing with wrongdoers, as outlined in Matthew 18:15-17, was discussed. In harmony with this, there were, on rare occasions, church trials in which the evidence of wrongdoing in serious cases was presented to the entire congregation. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Years later, the Watchtower, in its issue of May 15, 1944, reviewed the matter in the light of the entire Bible and showed that such matters affecting the congregation should be handled by responsible brothers charged with congregation oversight. So that is presented as better light.
Than Matthew.
We'll deal with that in a minute.
Okay.
This was followed in the Watchtower of March 1, 1952, with articles that emphasized not only proper procedure, but the need to take action to keep the congregation clean. And to take action to keep the congregation clean is in italics, as if that's the single highest priority. Repeatedly since then, the subject has been given consideration. But the objectives have always remained the same. First, to keep the congregation clean. Keep the organization clean. And to impress on the wrongdoer the need for sincere repentance with a view to recovering him.
Look which one comes first, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. In the first century, there were some who abandoned the faith for loose living. Others were turned aside because of apostate doctrines. The same thing continues to occur among Jehovah's Witnesses in the 20th century. Sadly, in recent times it has been necessary to disfellowship tens of thousands of unrepentant wrongdoers each year. Prominent elders have been included among them. The same scriptural requirements apply to all. Jehovah's Witnesses realize that maintaining a morally clean organization is vital in order to continue to have Jehovah's approval.
Well, I do think we've got to connect the first thought, that is the first paragraph, with the stuff. What do we do with people who dare to disagree, and what do we do with people who don't keep to our high standards? And that is what do you do with people before they're baptized? You have to qualify to be baptized, whereas in the New Testament, you don't qualify.
You hear the
hear the good news
of
and you
Christ.
respond.
Yeah, and you're baptized then.
It's not about high moral standards in the Bible then, is it? Because a lot of these people who would say, I believe, would have problems adjusting to this new standard. But that's after you get baptized. So what happens if you let people in, despite your high standards, even to get baptized nowadays? What happens if you let people in? Well, you say, well, we have even higher standards than we had at the beginning of when we understood Matthew 18,
15 to 17.
We understood that involved the entire congregation, and it does. In other words, when Jesus is talking about discipline, he says, take it to the congregation.
Yeah.
Anything that's a dispute among brothers,
not take it to the elders.
You say, well, as of 1944, we had the light that it had to be put in the hands of the elders. And then you cite some really strange passages to prove your point.
Yeah.
One is 1 Corinthians 5. We won't read it. I think you're familiar with that, where we're told to expel from among ourselves the wicked one. But that's a one-off in 29 chapters, and it's about a public scandal.
Yeah.
We've done a work or two on that before, and we'll
So
link this at the end.
the entire congregation did know this. That was part of the problem. They
The whole
knew it, and
congregation knew.
they weren't doing anything.
And the world knew too. So everybody knew what the situation was, and therefore the accusation and the witnesses. It was public. And then you also compare this to Deuteronomy 21. We want to read that one because it's more obscure. That's Deuteronomy 21 verses 18 to 21.
Yeah, so we'll read it from the Silver Sword. If a man has a son who is stubborn and rebellious, and he does not obey his father or his mother, and they have tried to correct him, but he refuses to listen to them, his father and his mother should take hold of him and bring him out to the elders at the gate of his city, and say to the elders of his city, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious, and he refuses to obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Then all the men of his city must stone him to death. So you must remove what is bad from your midst, and all Israel will hear and become afraid.
One can only assume they use this here to prove that elders are involved. But note that in Corinthians, elders aren't even mentioned. In fact, they're never mentioned in all of the Corinthian correspondence.
Yeah.
And they're not mentioned either in the Matthew 18 passage. So you've got to get the elders and the secrecy in here somehow, and this is how you're going to do it, by misusing
But the
Scripture.
passage makes it very clear that the whole city knows about it. It's done in a public sphere.
That's right, even though...
That's where they went, to the city gates for judgments. And
That's right. And if you go to the another text, and you're going to need the other text for your next point about apostasy, if you go to the other text, which they don't cite, but we'll get to that in a minute, but 1 John they do cite. 1 John says, in the third paragraph here, that's being cited to prove that some are turned aside because of apostate doctrines. And then they talk about the need for this fellowshipping. So they're linking 1 John 2:19 to the thought that we need to take action against those who dare to disagree.
But the action is taken by the people themselves who don't believe. They leave. That's what the text tells you.
Yeah, just read the verse, which is 1 John 2:19. Read the verse, and it's about people who leave the congregation, not are thrown out of the congregation.
Yeah, no judicial meeting is being talked about.
So again, if they've left, do you not think that the congregation knows why they left? In which case, transparency again, as it is in the Deuteronomy and the Matthew text and the Corinthians text, and in the other Deuteronomy text, check it out later, Deuteronomy 13, where we're told that if you have an apostate son who's rebelling against the religion of Yahweh, it's your responsibility as his family to turn him over to the congregation, that is the entire community. You will have to take up the weapons first, to stone him, but they will also participate, just as in Deuteronomy 21.
Yeah. So I remember when they approached us for a meeting, and we asked if it was a judicial meeting, and up till now, the only thing we'd done was disagree, or at least...
No, we hadn't even done that.
No, we hadn't even disagreed. We didn't say our personal opinion, but we had written a document that included quotes from Watchtowers, going all the way from front, beginning to then. Scripture, using their Bible translation, and questions that had come up from other people that we were dealing with, and we couldn't answer them because we weren't able to find an answer. That's what we had done so far. And so we asked, what's this meeting about? What is it for? Is it a judicial meeting? And they said it could be, which translates, yeah, it probably will be.
Probably will be.
So we said we would be willing to come to such a meeting, but we would want it to be public. So the whole congregation to be invited. My family, our friends, people who are wondering why we're not going to meetings anymore.
We have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
And what was the response we got?
That's not the society's policy.
They said it right on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then we had said to them just before that, I think, we had said, but didn't the society recently publish an article saying that in Israel there were no star chamber hearings, that is secret hearings. It was all done in public at the city gate where everybody would congregate anyway.
Yeah, and it's the model that's used by
democracies and our court systems today. Yeah,
that's right, and they praise it for that, but they don't want to do that. And I remember saying to my mother that we said this, and she's like, well, no, they couldn't do that, you know. What if you were being disfellowshipped for adultery or, you know, some terrible sin?
Yeah.
Would you want everyone to hear about it? And I says, well, it doesn't really matter what I want. It would be what the scriptures say is the way to do it, to put it before everyone. Because what happens when they don't do that? When they do it secretly and then people are disfellowshipped is you don't know why. If you're a person in the congregation, you don't know, and you will speculate and you will gossip with other people as to the possible reasons, and then you may slander a person because you don't really know. You don't have any information or facts. So this is not a good system. If you want people to be protected from sin, they need to know what it is. They can't be put in the dark about it.
Yeah, and
it's not healthy for them either.
The fact that you can present this as improved light and compare it to what you did before, which is following the Matthew 18 counsel to take it to the congregation, and you admit that in those days, how do they put it? In harmony with this, there were on rare occasions church trials. Notice, and you're then referencing all these changes you've made over the decades in the direction of star chamber hearings.
Yeah. So this does not encourage people to even confess their sins. It just terrifies them.
Yeah.
It's not encouraging.
And for those who don't know the reasons, it just encourages, like you said, speculation. But it also intimidates them into not asking questions, because then they're fearful something will happen to them.
Right. Yeah. So it makes secrecy all around. It's not healthy.
What's our link?
A video called Sex and Sects.
Would you like to illuminate what that means?
So that was about the Corinthians and their congregation.
So sex is SECTS, and of course the other one is the other one. So why were there divisions in Corinth, and what's the connection between that and the sexual scandal that causes Paul to take this extreme measure of expel the wicked man, which he again only does once in the Corinth. The only time he actually does it in all of his 13 epistles. This is the only time he advises a congregation to do this.
Yeah.
What's it about?
Yeah.
See you next time.